Dr. Elena Reyes couldn't shake her suspicions as she entered her laboratory the following morning. The pristine facility had been upgraded with Vexari technology overnight, equipment that analyzed genetic material with precision beyond anything humans had developed. Yet the aliens had insisted on separate air filtration systems and specialized containment protocols that seemed excessive even for first contact precautions. Dr. Reyes, the Vexari delegation requests your presence in conference room 3, her assistant called through the intercom. Elena nodded, gathering her notes and straightening her lab coat before heading down the corridor. The conference room had been modified for the visitors. The temperature was significantly lower, and the lighting had a peculiar bluish tint that the Vexari claimed helped them perceive human features more clearly. Ambassador Zintar, the lead Vexari representative, floated near the center of the room, their crystalline body pulsing with internal lights that shifted from indigo to violet. Dr. Reyes, we appreciate your diligence in handling the biological exchange protocols. Zintar's voice emerged from their translation device, melodic yet somehow hollow. We have reviewed your preliminary findings on comparative physiology. Elena moved toward the holographic display table. I've been meaning to ask about your containment requirements. They seem unusually stringent for simple biological samples. The lights within Zintar's body flickered momentarily, a reaction Elena had learned indicated discomfort or hesitation. Standard procedure when encountering a new species. Nothing unusual, I assure you. Elena pulled up her latest analysis results. We've noticed your representatives maintain distance during blood sampling procedures. Is there a specific concern with human hemoglobin? The room temperature dropped another few degrees as the 3 other Vexari present shifted their positions subtly, crystalline appendages angling toward each other in what Elena recognized as their version of private communication. Merely precautionary, Zintar replied after a pause that lasted slightly too long. Our physiology reacts differently to iron-based circulatory systems. Elena made a note on her tablet. Different how exactly? Our records show you've established contact with other iron-based life forms without such measures. Each species presents unique challenges. Zintar responded, their lights pulsing more rapidly. Now regarding tomorrow's demonstration of medical technology exchange. The conversation shifted, but Elena's mind remained fixed on the evasion. Later that afternoon, she found herself reviewing security footage from the initial landing. Frame by frame, she watched the moment when a security officer had accidentally cut his hand on equipment during the Vexari arrival. The reaction had been subtle but unmistakable. All Vexari had immediately increased their distance, their bodies dimming perceptibly. Elena cross-referenced this with environmental readings, noting a spike in what the Vexari had described as atmospheric stabilization measures, which she now suspected might be neutralizing agents. As she dug deeper into the Vexari medical database they had shared, she discovered curiously empty sections where information about their physiological vulnerabilities should be. The data had been carefully sanitized, with entire categories missing compared to human medical databases. Computer, analyze Vexari proximity to human blood samples across all recorded interactions, she commanded. The results appeared instantly. A clear correlation pattern showing Vexari maintaining precisely calculated safe distances from human blood samples at all times, with increased protective measures during any procedure involving blood collection. They're hiding something fundamental about how they interact with us, Elena whispered to herself as she encrypted her findings. The question is, what happens when human blood actually touches a Vexari? She didn't know it yet, but she would have her answer sooner than expected. Marcus Chen's scream echoed through the laboratory as the Vexori researcher collapsed to the floor, its crystalline form partially dissolving where the blood droplet had made contact. Alarm klaxons blared instantly, and emergency containment shields descended from the ceiling, separating the two species. "Get a medical team here now," Marcus shouted, pressing his wounded finger against his lab coat while staring in horror at the writhing alien. The Vexori's normally melodious voice had transformed into a high-pitched keening sound that made the laboratory equipment vibrate. Within moments, the room flooded with Vexori in specialized hazard suits, their movements quick and practiced, as if following a long-established protocol for this exact scenario. They surrounded their injured colleague, applying a neutralizing solution to the affected area, while deliberately avoiding eye contact with the humans present. Dr. Elena Reyes pushed her way through the gathering crowd outside the lab, her security clearance granting her access despite the lockdown. She arrived just as the injured Vexori was being transported to their ship in a sealed containment pod. "What happened?" she demanded, pulling Marcus aside. "I don't understand," he stammered, his face pale. "I was just taking measurements of crystalline growth patterns. My finger slipped on the edge of a slide, and when the blood touched Ambassador Turven's appendage, he trailed off, gesturing helplessly at the dissolving residue still visible on the laboratory floor." Elena snapped on gloves and carefully collected a sample while security cameras whirred above her. "It's almost like an acid reaction," she murmured, examining the substance. Within an hour, all Vexori representatives had retreated to their ships in orbit. Communications went silent except for a terse message declaring a biological containment situation under assessment. The research facility was evacuated, except for essential personnel, with Elena using her authority to remain behind. In her private lab, secured against surveillance, she carefully placed a diluted blood sample on a synthetic Vexori tissue sample they had provided during earlier exchanges. The reaction was immediate and violent. The crystalline structure disintegrated on contact. "Computer, analyze reaction components," she commanded. The results confirmed her suspicions. The iron in human hemoglobin, combined with specific enzymes unique to human blood, created a compound that catastrophically disrupted the silicon crystal matrix that formed Vexori biology. "This isn't just an allergic reaction," she whispered. "It's a fundamental incompatibility." As she worked through the night, analyzing the reaction from every angle, her security clearance allowed her to access emergency communications between the Vexori ships and their homeworld. Though partially encrypted, she could make out fragmented transmissions. Containment protocols failed. Direct exposure incident. Highest toxicity rating confirmed. Recommend immediate quarantine of all human contact. Elena's terminal suddenly chimed with an alert. Satellite imagery showed additional Vexori vessels entering Earth orbit, larger ships with configurations that differed from the diplomatic vessels. Military vessels. Her private communicator buzzed with a message from a high-level government contact. Emergency Security Council meeting in 1 hour. All scientific directors required. Global situation developing. As Elena gathered her findings, she received one more transmission, this one from a secured channel she didn't recognize. The message was brief but chilling. "They've always known what human blood does to them. What you've discovered isn't news to the Vexori. It's confirmation of why they came in the first place." Elena stared at the message, realizing the accidental blood contact hadn't revealed something new to the aliens. It had nearly forced them to accelerate whatever plans they had already made for humanity. The Vexari embassy stood eerily silent in the moonlight as Dr. Elena Reyes disabled the perimeter sensors using the access codes from her security clearance. She knew she was crossing a line, but the fate of humanity might depend on learning the truth before official channels caught up to the reality of their situation. The abandoned facility still hummed with active systems, environmental controls maintaining the cooler temperatures the crystalline aliens preferred. Elena moved through darkened corridors toward the central database hub, her footsteps echoing in the emptiness. Authorization. Reyes, Elena P. Science Director. She whispered to the terminal, holding her breath as it processed her credentials. To her surprise, the system accepted them without resistance. Either the Vexari had left in too much haste to revoke access, or they wanted someone like her to find what she was looking for. The alien database interface glowed with unfamiliar symbols that slowly translated into English as she navigated through file structures. Most information remained encrypted, but the medical systems remained partially accessible, likely to maintain compatibility with human medical facilities during the exchange program. Display all files containing references to human biology, she commanded. The system hesitated, then responded with thousands of documents. Elena narrowed her search. Show only classified documents regarding human blood composition. The screen displayed a folder marked with what translated roughly as prime toxin species, containment protocols. Her heart raced as she opened the first file. Earth species designation, toxic prime category 1. The document began. Hemoglobin composition presents catastrophic risk to all Concord member species. Direct blood contact causes immediate cellular degradation in crystalline species, severe neurological damage in gaseous species, and systemic failure in carbon-based semi-aquatics. Elena sat back, stunned. The document was dated 2047, more than a century before official first contact. She continued reading, downloading files to her secure tablet as she went. The records revealed a history she could scarcely believe. Earth had been discovered over 2 centuries ago, but placed under a quarantine protocol when early sampling revealed the unique properties of human blood. The Galactic Concord, an alliance of 17 spacefaring civilizations, had designated Earth a containment world, monitoring human development while debating solutions to what they termed the human biological hazard. One document, authored by the Vexari High Command, caught her attention. As humans approach independent interstellar capability, containment risk increases exponentially. Recommend immediate implementation of Protocol 7. Elena's blood ran cold as she opened the file describing Protocol 7. Controlled introduction of representative diplomatic mission. Assessment of biological defense capability. Implementation of neutralization option if threat level exceeds containment parameters. They didn't come in peace, she whispered. They came to determine if we should be allowed to exist. Further files revealed emergency communications following the laboratory incident. The Vexari leadership had upgraded Earth's threat assessment to critical and accelerated their timetable dramatically. As Elena prepared to leave with their devastating findings, an alert flashed across the screen. Vexari vessels were deploying what they called atmospheric monitoring platforms around major population centers. The bland designation couldn't hide their true purpose, which the technical specifications made clear. Systems designed to disperse airborne compounds across wide areas. The diplomatic mission had been nothing but assessment. Now the containment phase was beginning. Elena slipped out of the embassy into the cool night air, clutching evidence that would transform humanity's understanding of its first contact. They weren't dealing with new allies. They were facing an advanced civilization that had already decided humans were too dangerous to be allowed free development, and perhaps too dangerous to be allowed at all. Secretary General Adama's expression remained unchanged as the holographic display showed Vexari vessels positioning themselves strategically around Earth. The Security Council chamber had been secured against all electronic surveillance, with quantum scramblers ensuring no transmission could escape the room. Dr. Reyes, are you absolutely certain of your conclusions? Adama asked, her voice steady despite the existential threat facing humanity. Elena nodded, projecting translated Vexari documents onto the central display. The evidence is irrefutable. They've known about us for centuries. The atmospheric monitoring platforms they're deploying are consistent with delivery systems for their genetic modification compounds. General Takeda, the UN Defense Force commander, leaned forward. Then this ultimatum is simply a formality. They've already decided our fate. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity was facing an advanced coalition of species with technology centuries beyond Earth's capabilities. We should consider their offer, suggested the Chinese representative cautiously. Genetic modification might be preferable to extinction. Elena shook her head. The modifications they propose would fundamentally alter our species. The Vexari documents suggest their solution would significantly reduce human cognitive function while eliminating the unique properties of our blood. We wouldn't be cured, we would be domesticated. Secretary General Adama rose from her seat, her tall figure silhouetted against the world map displayed behind her. Humanity will not surrender its autonomy or identity. If our very blood makes us dangerous to them, that is not our failing, but simply our nature. Madam Secretary, with respect, the conquered forces could eliminate major population centers within hours if they choose, warned the Russian representative. Perhaps, replied Adama, but the very thing they fear about us might be our greatest protection. She turned to Dr. Reyes. You said our blood affects all known conquered species. Have you confirmed this experimentally? Elena nodded, bringing up her laboratory results. I've tested synthesized versions against tissue samples from all 7 species they provided during the exchange. The reaction is universal, though it varies in intensity. The Vexari are among the most vulnerable, but all show significant cellular disruption on contact. General Takeda's expression shifted from concern to calculating interest. Then we have a natural deterrent. They can't risk direct confrontation or occupation because any casualties on their side would expose them to a substance that could decimate their forces. And that's why they want us contained, Adama concluded, not just because we're dangerous, but because they have no defense against us. The communications officer interrupted. Madam Secretary, the Vexari ambassador is demanding our answer to their terms. Adama straightened her jacket and squared her shoulders. Patch them through to this room only. The holographic display shifted to show Ambassador Zintar, their crystalline form pulsing with cold light. Secretary General, the Concord awaits your response. Will Earth accept our generous terms for containment and modification? Adama looked directly at the alien representative. Ambassador, I have reviewed your proposal and consulted with Earth's leadership. Our answer is this. Humanity rejects any terms that would restrict our development or alter our biological nature. We did not choose to be toxic to your kind, but neither will we apologize for existing as we are. The lights within Zintar's form darkened. Then you leave the Concord no choice but to implement protective measures. We regret what must follow. As the transmission ended, the orbital sensors detected multiple Concord vessels changing formation. Earth had made its choice. Now they would face the consequences. Commander Sofia Navarro examined the prototype weapon with careful scrutiny, its sleek design belying the revolutionary technology within. The underground Himalayan facility hummed with activity as scientists and military personnel worked around the clock to develop humanity's defenses. "The delivery system is elegant," she commented, running her finger along the modified rifle. "How does it work exactly?" Dr. Rees adjusted her glasses as she explained. "We've synthesized the key compounds in human blood that trigger the reaction. The ammunition contains microcapsules that rupture on impact, dispersing the synthetic hemoglobin compound in an aerosol form. It doesn't require actual blood, just the specific chemical triggers that cause the reaction." "And the effectiveness?" Navarro asked, hefting the weapon. "Laboratory tests show 100% efficacy against all Concord biological samples," Rees replied. "It creates the same dissolution effect as direct blood contact, but with controlled delivery and range." Navarro nodded, setting the prototype down carefully. "Mass production?" "Already underway. We've converted pharmaceutical facilities worldwide. Within 72 hours, we'll have enough to equip priority defense forces at major population centers." The tactical display behind them showed Concorde vessels maintaining their orbital positions. 3 days had passed since Earth's rejection of the ultimatum, but the expected attack hadn't materialized. Intelligence suggested disagreement within the Concorde leadership about how to proceed. "They're being cautious," Navarro observed. "They know direct confrontation risks exposure to the very substance they fear most." "Which buys us time," said Jackson Wei, entering the command center with a tablet in hand. The former diplomat looked exhausted but determined. "I've made contact with potential allies." "Allies?" Rees asked, surprised. "Out there." Wei nodded, connecting his tablet to the main display. "The Concorde isn't the only power in the galaxy. I've established communication with the Stellar Union, silicon-based life forms like the Vexoi, but with a fundamentally different crystalline structure that makes them immune to the effects of human blood." The screen displayed images of elegant, spiral-shaped crystalline beings whose bodies refracted light in rainbow patterns. "They've been monitoring our situation," Wei continued. "Like us, they faced Concorde containment efforts centuries ago. Unlike us, they lacked a natural defense and were forced to accept restricted status until they developed technology to break free. Can they help us?" Navarro asked, studying the images intently. "They're cautious but interested. They've been looking for allies against Concorde expansion for decades." Wei pulled up additional data. "And they're not alone. I've also made contact with the Nazuri exiles, methane breathers who were displaced from their homeworld when the Concorde deemed their atmospheric requirements incompatible with standard protocols." "So the Concorde has a history of suppressing species that don't fit their biological norms," Rees said thoughtfully. "Exactly. And now they face a coalition of the very species they tried to contain." Wei's expression was grim but hopeful. "But we need to prove ourselves first. The Stellar want evidence that we can effectively defend against Concorde forces before they commit to an alliance." Commander Navarro checked the latest intelligence reports, her eyes narrowing as she noticed unusual movement patterns from a Concorde scout vessel. "We may get that chance sooner than expected. We're detecting a small craft approaching the Pacific defense grid. Minimal weapons signature, likely a reconnaissance mission." "Perfect," Navarro said, reaching for her communication device. "Alert Red Shield teams in the sector. If they want to test our defenses, let's show them exactly what human ingenuity can accomplish when backed into a corner. On the tactical display, the alien vessel continued its descent toward Earth, unaware it was about to become the first test of humanity's new defensive capabilities, and potentially the catalyst for an alliance that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The Colorado Power Facility's emergency lights cast long shadows across the complex as Commander Navarro led her specialized team into defensive positions. Intelligence had confirmed that a Vexari strike force had breached Earth's atmosphere under the cover of a localized electromagnetic storm, evading most early warning systems. All units maintained discipline, Navarro instructed through her tactical comm as she checked the charge on her blood compound weapon. Remember your training. These aren't conventional hostiles. They are crystalline entities with environment suits that we need to breach for our weapons to be effective. Her squad acknowledged, their faces grim but determined in the red emergency lighting. Many had family in nearby Denver, making this mission personal beyond the strategic importance of protecting the power grid. Motion sensors detecting movement at the perimeter reported Lieutenant KO'd from his position overlooking the main entrance. Thermal signatures are cold, definitely Vexari. Navarro adjusted her tactical display, tracking multiple signals approaching from different vectors. The Vexari were being cautious, clearly aware that humans now understood the effect their blood had on alien physiology. They're targeting junction boxes, Navarro realized, studying their movement pattern. This isn't an occupation force, it's sabotage. They're trying to disable our infrastructure systematically before a larger attack. The first Vexari came into view, its crystalline form encased in a protective suit that gleamed dully in the emergency lighting. It moved with uncanny grace, placing what appeared to be a small device on the primary power coupling. "Weapons free," Navarro ordered quietly. "Target their environmental systems first." Concentrated fire erupted from multiple positions, specialized rounds designed to breach the Vexari protection suits without immediately harming the aliens inside. The strategy worked. Several suits ruptured, exposing the crystalline beings to the synthesized blood compounds that followed in the second wave of fire. The effect was immediate and horrifying. The exposed Vexari emitted high-pitched sounds as their crystalline structures began to dissolve where the compounds made contact. Those still protected retreated immediately, abandoning their sabotage mission in favor of extraction. "They're falling back," KO'd reported. "But we have flanking units coming in from the east side." Navarro redirected half her team to intercept the new threat, but as she turned to lead them, a Vexari energy weapon discharged from an unexpected position overhead. The blast caught her in the side, burning through her tactical gear and into her flesh. The pain was immediate and intense, but Navarro remained conscious, drawing her sidearm as she fell. The Vexari attacker dropped from its elevated position, moving to finish her with a second shot. In desperation, Navarro fired her blood compound weapon directly at the alien's face shield. The round struck true, cracking the protective covering. What happened next would become legendary in the accounts of the conflict. As the synthesized compound made contact with the Vexari's exposed surface, its crystalline form began to dissolve rapidly, emitting a light so bright that it temporarily blinded everyone in the vicinity. As Navarro's vision cleared, she saw that the Vexari was gone, completely dissolved into a shimmering puddle of molecules that had once been a sentient being. "Commander, you're injured," KO'd said, kneeling beside her as medical personnel approached. "Secure the facility first," she ordered through gritted teeth. "And get me a secure line to headquarters. The Vexari didn't just come to disable infrastructure. This was a test. They wanted to see our capabilities before committing to full-scale action." As medical nanites worked to stabilize her wound, Navarro studied the tactical displays showing vexillary forces retreating worldwide. Their first direct confrontation had revealed two critical truths. Humans could effectively weaponize their biological advantage, and the vexillary feared that capability enough to reconsider direct engagement. The balance had shifted, if only slightly. For the first time since the crisis began, humanity had shown it would not be easily contained. Jackson Wei had never imagined he would stand aboard an alien vessel, much less one preparing to engage in combat against the most powerful coalition in known space. The Stellar command ship hummed with a resonant frequency that vibrated pleasantly through his body as he studied the tactical display alongside Captain Frixell, the spiral crystalline commander of the Stellar Liberation Fleet. "Your defensive actions on Earth were impressive," Frixell communicated, their thoughts translated through a neural interface attached to Wei's temple. Many doubted humans could successfully weaponize their biological advantage so quickly. "Necessity breeds innovation," Wei replied, watching as the holographic display showed Concorde blockade formations around Earth. "But defensive victories won't be enough. The blockade is tightening. Our lunar colonies have lost contact, and orbital infrastructure is being systematically neutralized." Frixell's crystalline form shifted colors, expressing what Wei had learned to recognize as determination. "The Concorde does not forgive defiance. They will escalate until you submit or are eliminated. It is their way." "Then we need to show them another way," Wei said, bringing up the battle plan they had developed over the past 48 hours. "Our blood-based weapons provide localized tactical advantage, but we lack the means to deploy them against their orbital assets." "Which is why we are here," Frixell responded, their form pulsing with blue light. "The Stellar remember our own containment. For centuries, we complied with Concorde restrictions, believing we had no choice. When we finally developed technology to break free, we swore to help others facing similar oppression." Wei nodded gratefully, and the Najiri. "In position," Frixell confirmed, highlighting several areas on the tactical display where methane-breathing Najiri vessels had slipped through the Concorde's sensor network. Their stealth technology will allow them to disable key communication nodes when the attack begins. The plan was audacious, but carefully calculated. While the Stellar fleet engaged the primary Concorde blockade vessels in a frontal assault, Earth forces would launch with blood compound coating on their hulls, a modification that would make physical contact with their ships catastrophic for Concorde vessels. Meanwhile, the Najiri would disrupt the Concorde command structure, preventing a coordinated response. "We're receiving the signal from Earth," one of the Stellar officers announced. "Human forces are in position and awaiting coordination." Wei took a deep breath, knowing that history would remember this moment, the first coordinated multi-species attack against Concorde dominance. "Commence operations on my mark." As he gave the signal, the Stellar vessels accelerated toward the blockade, their advanced drives creating ripples in space that confused Concorde targeting systems. Simultaneously, from Earth's surface, squadrons of fighters launched, their hulls glistening with the synthesized blood compound. The Concorde response was immediate but fragmented as Najiri infiltrators disabled their primary communication relays. Vexillary vessels fired upon the approaching Stellar fleet, their energy weapons creating dazzling light displays against the void of space. The first direct contact came when a human fighter deliberately scraped its wing against a Concorde interceptor. The effect was immediate and devastating. The point of contact began to dissolve, the corrosion spreading rapidly across the vexillary vessel's hull like a cancer. Within moments, the entire ship was breaking apart, its crystalline structure compromised beyond recovery. "It works," Wei exclaimed, watching as the tactic was repeated across the engagement zone. Human vessels were taking damage, but each contact with a Concorde ship resulted in catastrophic failure for the alien craft. The Strillar captain's colours shifted to what Wei recognized as their equivalent of grim satisfaction. The Concorde has enforced biological conformity for millennia. There is a certain justice in watching them fall to the very diversity it sought to suppress. As the battle unfolded, Wei received a transmission from Commander Navarro, still recovering on Earth, but monitoring the engagement. "The blockade is breaking. Tell your Strillar friends they've earned humanity's eternal gratitude." Wei watched as the combined fleet pushed through the Concorde lines, creating an opening that would allow Earth to reconnect with its lunar colonies and establish a permanent presence beyond the Concorde's reach. "This is just the beginning," he replied, knowing that the galaxy would never be the same after today. The asteroid facility gleamed with the combined architectural styles of 4 species, its neutral environment carefully calibrated to accommodate the biological needs of all participants. Dr. Elena Rees adjusted her breathing apparatus as she entered the methane-rich chamber where the Najiri representatives floated like gossamer jellyfish, their translucent bodies pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. "The Concorde delegation has arrived," her assistant informed her through the communication system. "They're requesting final verification of environmental protocols before entering the facility." Elena smiled at the irony. "Ensure they understand our containment precautions are in place. No human will come within 20 meters of their representatives without protective barriers." 6 weeks had passed since the breaking of the Earth blockade. 6 weeks of careful negotiations, intermittent skirmishes, and a fundamental shift in galactic power dynamics. The Concorde, faced with the unprecedented alliance between humans, Strillar, and Najiri, had finally agreed to cease hostilities and engage in diplomatic discussions. In the central chamber, designed with separate environmental sections for each species, Elena joined Commander Navarro and Jackson Wei. Navarro still moved with a slight limp from her injuries, now a permanent reminder of humanity's first direct confrontation with the Vexori. "Nervous?" Wei asked as they watched the Concorde representatives enter their designated area. "Cautiously optimistic," Elena replied. "Their preliminary response to our medical proposals was surprisingly positive. The Vexori delegation, led by a new ambassador after Zintar's removal for the diplomatic failure, took their positions. Their crystalline forms seemed duller, less vibrant than during their initial visit to Earth, a visual representation of the Concorde's diminished status. Representatives of Earth, Strillar Union, and Najiri Collective, the lead Vexori began, their translator conveying formal tones. "The Galactic Concorde acknowledges the changed circumstances that necessitate these discussions. We are prepared to consider terms for peaceful coexistence." Navarro exchanged a glance with Wei. This was considerably more conciliatory than expected from a coalition that had, until recently, considered humanity a biological hazard requiring containment or elimination. Elena stepped forward, activating the presentation system. "Before we discuss political arrangements, I believe it's important to address the central issue that led to this conflict, the biological incompatibility between our species." The holographic display showed molecular structures rotating slowly in the center of the chamber. "What the Concorde feared as a weapon, we've been developing as medicine," she explained, highlighting specific compounds derived from human blood. "Through careful modification, we've isolated elements that can treat crystalline degradation diseases affecting Vexari youth without causing harm to healthy tissue." She advanced to the next display. "Similarly, Modified compounds show promise in treating respiratory disorders in methane-based life forms, like the Krith within the Concorde. The Vexori representatives shifted, their internal lights pulsing with what Elena had learned to recognize as surprise and cautious interest. "You weaponized your blood against us," the lead Vexori stated, "yet now claim it can heal us." "We weaponized it because you threatened our existence," Navarro replied firmly. "Now we offer its benefits because cooperation serves us all better than conflict." Wei stepped forward. "The Strellar and Najiri joined us not merely against the Concorde, but for a new vision of galactic society, one that embraces biological diversity rather than seeking to contain it." As Elena presented detailed research showing the medical applications of modified human blood compounds, she observed the subtle shifts in the Vexori delegation's posture and coloration. Their fear was being gradually replaced by scientific curiosity, the same drive that had initially brought their species to the stars. The negotiations would be long and complex, the path forward filled with challenges. But as she watched representatives of once hostile species engage in substantive discussion about mutual benefits, Elena felt a profound sense of vindication. What had begun as a terrifying revelation about human biology had transformed into an opportunity to forge a more diverse, inclusive galactic community. Perhaps, she thought, watching the interactions unfold, what makes us different isn't what divides us. It's what gives us the capacity to contribute something unique.